Anyway, welcome to this is the last Theater Lovers event for 2021. We will start up again in January. It's going to be a Zoom presentation. You'll all hear about it in December. You'll get an email about it, basically. I think you all know this is the new home of New Mexico Actors Lab, and who's hosting us this evening. And this is the set for Other Desert Cities. And if you haven't seen it, you have this last weekend to actually come see it. It's absolutely fantastic. And this lady nodding her head is doing a great job in the cast.
Brava.
Yes. So now our four speakers are going to actually be talking to you about Just Say It Theater's new presentation of Forces of Nature. These are two one-act plays by Leslie Dillon and Dale Dunn. Both playwrights have received national and international awards with productions including Eugene O'Neill National Playwright Conference, the Edinburgh and New York Fringe Festival, the Samuel French Festival of One-Act Plays, and others. Now I'm introducing them each individually. Lynn is an actor, director, and producer. She and Dale founded Just Say It Theater 7 years ago. She is most recently in Coriolanus as Volumnia, and was Brutus in Julius Caesar. When living in New York, she acted in film, off-Broadway, and in regional theaters. Lynn has directed the fabulous production of Nick Payne's Constellations, which was here in 2018, and The Big Heartless in 2019, and is now co-directing with Dale her play called
Sworn to Water.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm getting confused as Forces of Nature. And she's also acting as Lorene Neidiger. Dale is a playwright, dramaturg, and teacher. Her last full-length play, The Big Heartless, was a semi-finalist in the Eugene O'Neill National Playwrights Conference, the Ashland New Play Festival, and the Actors Theater of Louisville's Humana Festival. Sworn to Water, along with her co-founder, Just Say It, Lynn Goodwin. I'm getting mixed up here. We'll discuss the play. Leslie has acted in theater, television, and film in New York, LA, San Francisco, and Boston. Most recently, she has appeared in Nora, in Doll's House 2, the New Mexico Actors Lab production 3 years ago.
How long ago was that?
I know.
Three.
Isn't that incredible?
I know. The lost year.
And now she's in Other Desert Cities. And now Kent is worked in all aspects of theater and film, from writing and acting to teaching and directing. He's appeared in TV and film, such as Manhattan, Better Call Saul, Last Stand, Midnight Texas. Kent was last seen as Mr. in the Actors Lab production of Cradle Will Rock. Kent will be directing Avalanche, written by Leslie Dillon. So I'm going to let these ladies and gentlemen talk, and we'll start questions at about 6:45, and you are.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ann. Thank you. And thank you, New Mexico Actors Lab, for hosting us here as well. Yay. As well as for the place where our shows will take place after Other Desert Cities close. They'll talk about that. What I'm going to talk about is how this play came about. People say, oh, where did this play come from? And, well, this was the first, this has been...
Which one are you doing?
Avalanche is my play, and it's the first one. It's 2 one-acts, and under the umbrella of the title called Forces of Nature, and Avalanche is my play, Sworn to Water is Dale's. This has been in the making for many decades, not as long as I've been alive, but close. So this is back in New York, where I'm taking a playwriting class because no one would hire me as an actor. And so I get this idea, and if you guys saw the playwrights thing some way back when I did a little thing about seeing that flasher on the street. I don't know if you remember that. It's a fascinating story. That has nothing to do with Avalanche. I don't know why I brought it up. Just to kind of warm up the crowd. But so I was taking a playwrights workshop, and it occurred to me that I wanted to write something that was longer than a monologue. So in the summers, we had been going to Gloucester, and there was another family, and the boy in the family, a teenage boy, was training to be an Olympic skier. And he was so fascinating. Well, my girls and I were fascinated because we just hadn't been around teenage boys. I had two, crazy daughters, but these boys, they were so boy and training, and the way his passion talking about skiing. So I thought, boy, I wanna be that boy. I want to get inside that kind of passion for skiing and the outdoors and stuff. So I started to create this idea in my head, and my dad had died several years before, and so my first play became Straight at the Gate. And Straight at the Gate was about a woman caught in an avalanche, and she comes into this zone where there is death, a guardian angel who is a black woman who cut up chicken, her dead dad, and this dead coach who is her lover. And so it was 5 characters, and we had a reading of it at Primary Stages in New York. And people came and they went, gosh, that's really interesting, but what is that? What's happening? I don't know. And I didn't either. But it was really, it was like really cool to create a world. It was the first time I created a world that was part of pieces of myself, but in this theatrical sense. Okay, so after that I put it away for 10 years in a drawer. And so then, actually it was longer than 10 years, it was about 12 years when I decided to try and get my master's at BU. So we had to do a thesis. And I was studying with Derek Wilcott. Oh, God bless him and God rest his soul. And so I brought in pieces. I thought, well, let's bring out that play in the drawer, see what happens. And so it became 3 characters, a young man who was looking for his birth mother, a woman who ran a retail store, and this presence who was trying to save her because the son had come to kill her. So this became my thesis project, and it became very dark and strange. And once again, the woman was a skier, and the play was interesting but confusing. And so in the drawer it went. Then when we moved to Santa Fe, I was approached by David Olson at Theater Work. There was a thing for poets called 4x4x4. You were to find a poet and see what that might speak to for you to create a one act. So I thought, is it time to bring out the play in the drawer again? And so I found this. By this time, I'm kind of in a spiritual journey of my own. And so I found this wonderful poet called Denise Levertov. And if you haven't read her, she's extraordinary. She really is a very powerful writer. And so I wanted to use pieces of her poetry. And so now my play went down to 2 people. Woman in a lost woman and a stranger. And so she isn't trapped in an avalanche, but she's really in a different space. So using Denise Levertov's poetry around the spiritual, I began to examine this. It was beautifully produced. David did an amazing job, and people said, gee, that was interesting. So confused. And so I said, okay, in the drawer. Then, hello. So then finally I am in a playwrights group with Dale. And they are saying, like, don't you want to bring in something, Leslie? Are you working on something? No, I can't write. I don't know what to do, And I thought, well, there is that play in the drawer. And so I went and got it out and started to re-examine this I thought, this is haunting me. There's something about this woman who is trapped, and being trapped and having to face some very deep, dark, and difficult issues from the past. So then Avalanche began to come to what it is, that she's trapped in an avalanche, 10 minutes to live, and there's a presence there who forces her to look at her past, and will she live or will she choose to die? So that really, all of those years, in other words, the life experiences, spiritual experiences where I was as a person came down into this kind of focused place. And that's where, Avalanche is today. And, it's an extraordinary gift to a playwright to have a group, like a playwrights group, to help you and talk about it. Kent was there as a director and an actor, and then Barbara Hatch, who's in the play, was also there. So she was reading it for the past 3 years. I bring in these things, they give feedback, but to be able to develop a new work in that kind of environment is really quite an extraordinary thing. And the wonderful thing was, and then I'll turn it over to Dale, was that we met our dear friend Ed Hastings, God rest his soul, who was the head of the American Conservatory Theater in San Francisco, and he was a mentor to me, and he directed my first production of Mabel back in the 90s when I first did it. Anyway, he said, there is a wonderful playwright, you should meet, Leslie. And I said, oh, who's that? And then he introduced Dale and I, and we started to hang out and to go to coffee shops together and to exchange what it was to be playwrights and women playwrights and of a certain age. So it was really, really due to Dale that I think I had the courage to continue kind of onward in the writing. She will now speak.
Well, that's quite an introduction. And I also valued so much meeting Leslie. I was new to Santa Fe, and my husband actually knew Ed Hastings. He worked with him at the American Conservatory Theater in San Francisco. He was fundraising and marketing. And we saw him in the audience at Santa Fe Playhouse, and I said, introduce me to him, please. And he did, and then he was interested in seeing my plays, read my plays, introduced me to Leslie, and we had since become great friends and great collaborators and support system, and meeting at the coffee shop and saying, what am I going to do? I've been sending my plays out, and nobody's taking them. And we really decided we needed to do it ourselves if we were going to get anything done. And so we kept going and meeting at the playwrights group, and she was kind enough to introduce me to David Olson. I didn't know anybody in the theater world here who was putting together this production she mentioned, and commissioned each of us to write a play about a poet. And I sort of froze and went, a poet? Because I love poetry, I do, but I often find it very confusing and deliberately obtuse, I think, and convoluted. And I went, okay, a poet. And I said to net out to all my writer friends and said, okay, I need a poet. Tell me who your favorite poets are. So they all sent in. And one of them was Lorene Niedecker. I'd never heard of her. And I looked up information about her, and I started reading her poetry, and it really spoke to me. It was clear and beautifully done, and so straightforward and honest and simple that I could understand what she was trying to do. And then as you read it further, it got deeper and deeper. You found that there was more meaning than you thought there was to each poem. And I was delighted with her work. And when I read about her life, I said, well, this is a play, because she had quite the life of living out on Black Hawk Island in Wisconsin with taking care of her mother, who was ill and aging and going deaf. And she had a wild love affair with this poet, Louis Zukofsky, and she had betrayal and love, and she had to work really hard in her life. And I just was very inspired by the poetry that she was able to come up with, despite all of the hardship in her life. And she created this luminous body of work that, so I wrote this play, and they put a production of it on with David Olson, and it was a wonderful production. It was a very simple workshop production, 2 weekends, I think, and met Lynn, who was, we met the year before. She were in our place for me. And I actually suggested she play Lorene to David Olson, and so that was how that whole collaboration started. And I always knew that I wanted to do this play again in the way that I had imagined it, which was using a lot of video and sound design, because I wanted to evoke Lorene Niedecker's world, which was, she lived on this island, which they called an island, which wasn't really an island. It was a peninsula that was flooded every spring. So the road to town was flooded. Their houses were flooded up to, almost up to the bed, the edge of the bed. Frogs in their houses, snakes coming in and out, bailing out the house, the water pump overflows, the washing machine breaks down. And I thought, wow, what's it like to live in that much water? So living in New Mexico, I had no idea. So I actually went out to Fort Atkinson, Wisconsin, and did some research there and met some wonderful people who have a whole society, the Friends of Lorene Niedecker, and the library is very dedicated to her. And I just was so taken with the area and the lushness and the way that she really used her place as her poetry. And I had always felt very close to, I grew up here in New Mexico and felt very close to the land here. I had a special, special relationship to the area behind my mother's house, where we would go disappear for the entire weekend, it seemed like, and climb in caves and go in the arroyos. And so to find a poet who had that relationship to her place of birth and her place was, I could understand that, how she says she carries it with her. I carry my clarity with me. And that was, really spoke to me. So I'm really excited to have this production coming up with, under our Just Say It Theater's helm, and to hire the people that we want to work with and the artists who are so excited to be working again together after being isolated for so long. Something that spoke to me too during the pandemic was when it first hit and we were supposed to do this production, and of course that didn't happen. December 2020 was, you know, where we all were, at home. And as it got more and more difficult to get through the pandemic, and sometimes just to even get out of bed was hard, and much less do anything creative and write and keep an engine flowing, I thought of Lorene often and thought, wow, I just was really respectful of how she kept going through isolation and despair and broken heart and poverty, and she wrote beautiful poetry. So I was humbled by that, and I'm so glad to bringing her story to life.
What I would like to just speak to, well, first of all, just to kind of, because we're all wearing many hats up here, and Dale and I are co-artistic directors of Just Say It Theater, and Dale and I are co-artistic directors of Just Say It Theater, and so in looking at what we were going to do, one thing that I really believe in is helping playwrights see their visions. And so for me, I knew that there was more Dale wanted out of the play, and so I was very interested at some point to do it again, and to find a time and how to do it, it being a one act. And then when Leslie's play had a reading last
Yeah, I forgot to mention that.
Yes, a reading, again, part of the developmental process.
Right before the pandemic happened.
Right before the pandemic happened. And I said to Dale, why don't we do both these plays together? Just because they both have very resilient women. They both deal with nature and how nature affects us in a way that challenges us, but also in the way that that takes us to another place, which is part of the challenge, I suppose. And then there's the obvious flood, avalanche, forces in nature. So basically, it was like, boing, we have an evening at theater, and part of our purpose with Just Say It Theater is to do plays that are provocative and that deal with challenges of human beings and how we learn, from things like we did a production of Constellations, Nicholas Payne's play that had dealt with string theory, and kind of for me the ultimate message out of it was every choice you make in life will take you to another world. So, but it was a really fun process to work on that play, and then we did Dale's play, full-length play, The Big Heartless, about man's the way man treats nature. Dealt with the wolves being endangered and endangered children, how children are often shuttled off to what some people call tough love schools, but they're actually quite abusive, some of them. I know there are some good ones out there, but at any rate, that play dealt with some issues along those lines. And then Dale and I also have been worked for many years with Just Say It Theater with youth in schools, either in NMSA mostly and Squad. I worked with a bunch of other schools too, but doing original productions for them. So that was, there's one particular play, Left to Our Own Devices, which deals with the relationship of how, well, the subtitle, how to stay connected in the digital age. So, that when kids just started getting pulled into their devices, and we had helped them create a play about that. And actually over the pandemic, we pulled it out and said, let's see if we can get this published. And we rewrote it, and we had some students come back and help us with readings, and about 6 months ago, we got it published. So hopefully somebody will do it. But it's actually, we could maybe even do it again here. But what I would like to now do is just have Kent talk briefly about, or as much as he wants to, about
So many things to say.
About working with a playwright, because I think that
A live playwright.
A live playwright.
In the room.
And developing the developmental process. And we're going to also move on to the topic of the evening about why I go to theater. So
When the world is falling apart.
Yeah, and we first have to have the plays to go to theater for. But
Well, this is my third project with Leslie. I directed her play Two Wives in India, and then I directed her one-woman show, The Passions of Mabel Dodge Lujan, that she played Mabel Dodge Lujan, and now we're doing Avalanche. She probably has another play in the drawer someplace that she'll pull out, and there's more. I mean, she's infinitely creative. I love working on a new play with the playwright and the actors in the room together, because it's a fascinating collaborative exchange of ideas, because the actors actually bring a lot to the process. And a lot of times, we'll write a line, and if it doesn't fit in the actor's mouth, then you can change it right there, and Leslie is absolutely open to that all the time. And so it's a very give and take and a collaborative effort that's really very creative, challenging for sure, but very creative. And it's probably my favorite kind of directing to do, is a new play with a playwright and actors all right there together. And it's really different too. Like Len mentioned, we did a reading of this play last year before the pandemic. But to have two real good actors start to embody and start to stand up and move around, we learned so much more about the characters that we didn't know before. And so that's the next step of all of this. And then, ultimately make it meaningful and give the audience the experience that we hope that they'll have. And so it's a wonderful creative process that way. But anyway, let's talk about why go to theater.
Why go to theater, Kent?
Good question. I have noticed, I don't know why, but I have noticed since we have opened up, and I did Benny's production of that play, Cradle Will Rock, that audiences seem to be wanting and needing it, and really coming back to the theater, which is, I know we need it. I can't say why. Probably everybody has a different reason why, but we want it and need it. And so probably goes back to sitting in the cave around the fire. We're
With other people.
With other people.
With other
We're a social animal. We live in community. We tell stories and we exchange ideas. That's probably where it comes from.
I wrote down a few things, which is really, I think that's really the basis of it. And we'd love also to hear from everybody about why. But there's really the thing about community and the communal experience. And especially after this isolation, it's really good to get out and just to feel, be with people. And also, good theater gives us good topics to talk about afterwards, like when Anna Mael did the Lifetime of a Fact, and these provocative plays that have issues that are like, just interesting to chew on after you see them, and when we can actually observe these other characters, or other characters struggling, that gives us a chance to reflect on life, on people, again, on community, what makes our society the way they are, those different things. Theater in different societies serves different purposes, but again, always bringing people together, and for us, it's live theater, keeping theater alive, and which helps us, I think, recognize our life inside of us, and inside of others as well. There's also just the whole thing about imagination, where obviously there's a lot of imagination going on up here with the playwrights and with the directors as well, bringing to. But I am just fascinated. This is my personal fascination, is about that gap in the space between people and among people, and how in that space, when you go to live theater, there's this collective, like, I'm sure you've been to plays where people will gasp at the same time, or they'll you just feel this movement and I'm fascinated by that. And I think that so much is what's happening is the audience imagination is channeling in with the actors. And you'll hear, I'm sure there's several actors here and up here, and they will tell you it's like you can feel the presence of an audience. You just feel it inside you, and I think also there's something about going to, and whether it's theater or whether it's art or really any communication, other communications with people, even just going to the grocery store. But it allows one, that contact allows one to have an open heart and to come at something. And what got me thinking about this was there's a line in Scorn to Water that Lorene Niedecker wrote about coming to poetry, that each person has to come to a poem with an ear toward all the music it can give. And then he'll hear, as Beethoven heard, though deaf. So that speaks again to that some kind of vibration, some, with music you can actually feel it, but I believe also that we feel what's happening between us, so with an open heart. So
Yeah, and I just want to speak to also not only why come to theater, but why do theater. And I thought, oh, well, this might be a little bookend thing. I started with this play decades ago, and this will be the last one, But I realize, in revisiting and going into it again with Kent and with the actors that, that what I'm hoping to create with Avalanche is an experience for the audience where their imagination, it's not an intellectual show. Let me tell you something. I have a very low IQ, truly, and so this is not an intellectual show. It is a metaphysical show. So it is about spirit, and the spirit you bring as the audience, and the spirit I hope we create here for you. But it's that, what Lynn's talking about, sort of that, but it's a bridge into the imagination that this play could not be a movie, it could not be a TV show. This could only be done theatrically. And my goal, as I'm understanding the deeper work I've been doing with Kent in these last couple of months, is that really I'm trying to theatricalize a kind of spiritual experience, or meaning this isn't, I'm not talking religious, I'm talking about things that the unseen, the things that surround us in the larger universe that we are not always aware of. But the pandemic made me so aware of things that sometimes I was just too busy to understand and how I was part of something larger. And I think that's why somebody asked me, well, why did you put it in an why is she, 10 minutes, a little space? And I said, because in that kind of before, to live or die in that space, is that people that literally are caught in avalanches, they go away, they go out, they see things, they experience things that are much larger in a weird way in order to survive. It's like, when you go in for those MRIs, and you don't open your eyes going in that tube. That's what it's like to be in a thing. Anyway, I just realized that, there's so many different kinds of theater that we can all experience together, and that this is a place, I just want to see if this will happen. And it may not. You guys can tell me. You can say, Leslie, it didn't happen. Back in the drawer.
But interesting what you were saying about the connection between people and how the theater enables us to feel that connection. I was reading an article in the newspaper about dreams during the pandemic, and there's this one woman who was studying dreams of people during crisis times. Like, she started with 9/11, and then she's now studying dreams of people during the pandemic, and the way that everybody starts having very similar dreams, and dreams about being caught, living out the reality of what we're all going through now of this pandemic. And your subconscious, while you're while you're sleeping at night, when you're supposed to be sleeping at night, is working and trying to figure out how to make you survive and to also engage your imagination, I think, to get you through this time. And it was interesting, I was thinking about Lorraine's work. She works a lot with the subconscious and her dreams, and channeling that that imagination into her work is fascinating to me. We've been working a lot with talking with the actors about the dreamscape that is the creative scape, that is the subconscious, that opens us up to that, as well as the idea of the time in this play that I've written is not a linear A, B, C, D, E time. It's a circle, and it spirals around, and it goes, it's her memory of things, and sometimes things pop up out of place, but you're remembering how your mother was, or how your lover was, or how, and it's that kind of sense of time. I've used it before, and Scott Mamade, Natachi's grandfather, is Natachi Mamade, plays the dark-haired woman in the play. And she's also working on the video, and the dark-haired woman is the embodiment of the woman who gets everything you ever wanted. And she only appears in video. And so that imagination of time sort of warping is called everyone. And it's an idea of walking through a canyon in time where you can access different points at different times, and it's all the time, everywhere, everywhen. And it's just a fascinating concept to work with actors who say, wait a minute, I wouldn't have known this person because she was dead before I came to the island. And say, yeah, but Lorraine has put you together in her head. So it's a really interesting sort of time warp that we're going through, and I hope you will enjoy that journey that we've put together for you. Yes.
Well, you brought up why theater now, and I remember one of the talkbacks at New Mexico Actors Lab, a woman was saying what a wonderful production it was, and what a shame that it hadn't been videotaped. And she wanted to show it to her daughter, who was not in town. And it was, she just adored it, but she wanted to show it on video. And the point is, each theater performance is the only one. And that's what's so precious about it, is that you're not in a video that you can read and see again and again and again. It's an immediate exchange of molecules between the audience and the actors.
Yes.
It's a one-time experience. And what you saw in your performance will not be ever seen again. And somebody will see a different performance the next night. And that's what's so exciting about it, for me.
Yeah.
And that is not captured, as anyone can attest to who's been videotaped on stage. That's not captured.
No, video does not capture the molecules.
Orson Welles once said, "It's no mistake that films come in cans."
We have a question from Zoom.
Yes.
We're wondering if you have ever considered selling a limited number of tickets to rehearsals to let people see the sausage making. I think it would increase interest in seeing the final product.
So the question is, would we ever consider selling tickets to rehearsals, in case you didn't hear this, to the sausage making, so to speak, a limited number of tickets?
Speaking as the playwright, I would say no. Not sorry. What happens when the minute you bring in an outsider into the room, the atmosphere between, and the trust and the safety net you're building between director, actors, playwrights to explore, that goes away because suddenly the actor is performing. Suddenly our attention is in a different place. So in terms of like in our development process, it would be hard. I wouldn't want to encourage it, for something that is at a different stage, perhaps later on, invited to a rehearsal, I can imagine, way later in the process. But, I mean, even with other desert cities, some person, when we were in rehearsals, there were sometimes, like a person would come in and everybody would go, "Wah!" Just like, like deer in the forest, and their attention would, skip, and we would be doing something else. And so I don't think it's such a good idea. Sorry.
Although there's the preview aspect. where-
The preview is
fine.
great.
Yeah, which
Totally.
is still a rehearsal and really invaluable toward the final product. I think.
Right.
Yeah, and I've been in several plays where we've stopped in rehearsal, and because in one of those preview situations and because there are things that still need to be worked out.
And that's part of being in the preview.
Yeah.
Right,
too.
which
Yeah.
is great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just the early stages. Yeah.
There's no question that the arrival of the audience signals a new phase of development in the work process.
Right.
And it used to be standard in our theater that a show would open out of town, New Haven or wherever, and you'd have built into the process 3, 4, 5 weeks of out-of-town tryouts. Glass Menagerie, for instance, was very unsuccessful when it first opened. And a critic in Chicago named Glenna Seiss kept it alive. She wrote an article about it every day to get people to support the process of this piece. And if she hadn't done that, we wouldn't have the masterpiece that we have. As far as we know, Shakespeare had Hamlet in the repertoire for 20 years. And every time it was revived, they would work on it a little bit more.
Yeah.
So we unfortunately have adopted an industrial model. The making of theater in America, because of the economics of it, is building widgets. And we have a blueprint and we execute it and then we sell it. And that's not fundamentally an artistic process. It's fundamentally an industrial process.
That's not what you do here.
Right.
Well,
No.
No, what's been
Because-
fascinating
yeah.
to me, because I've watched the beginning of Avalanche, or the end of Avalanche, before this, was part of
Big Heartless.
Big Heartless. And what's fascinating to me is that you are allowed, in a place like Santa Fe, to keep working on your plays. And
Yeah.
that's exciting.
Yeah, that's a real gift. And
Yeah.
that's when the audience really does give you, when you add the, like Benny says, that you add the element, then you're ready to, okay, what are we hearing? Are we hearing are they with us? Are they not? You learn, and it's a real gift.
I think that in nearly every rehearsal, like, well, okay, we're going to do this 3-week run, and then we might discover things to rewrite.
Right.
Because there's certain things that I go, I just don't know if this is going to work. We're going to try to make it work, but the audience may tell us, no, we need more of this or less of this. And so, yeah, a tryout would be great. Would be great.
And that's okay. There's I spent many years at the Ensemble Studio Theater in New York, which was it's dedicated to development plays. And it's a very incubation,
Yeah.
nurturing, and really giving playwrights the support and space that they need to try things out and work on them and move them to another step.
It's
So,
also wonderful to have a company of actors. We're working with Campbell, Martin, Lynn Goodwin, Kat Sawyer, and Kopan Kutsteit, and Natachi Mamadi Gray, and they're bring so much experience to the stage and so much behind them. And when I first sat down to start working with them, when Lynn and I first opened the room and brought everybody together, we said, this is a collaborative effort. We're going to be working together and experiencing and experimenting and trying things, and I hope you will make an idiot out of yourself and try something, and then we'll bring everybody back and we'll put it together and put it up there. But there has to be experiment, and there has to be exploration. Otherwise, you're just a robot.
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
I was part of a theater company in Alaska that our mission statement was the arts as a vehicle for social change. We've talked a lot about how the production process helps you change. As an audience member, I'd like to say theater is an important part of what helps me change.
Yes.
I may not have the skill to be up on stage, but in live theater, I'm a part of each person. I'm in that situation, and I go home and I think, what would I have done? What will I do when I'm in that situation? And I think that's one reason that theater can be so powerful in creating social change, both individually and in a group. And I am so grateful for the talent you bring that allows me to sit here and ride on your shoulders.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
We are grateful that you come to the theater.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I lower this?
Yeah.
I recently have developed a keen interest in storytelling, and more specifically, oral storytelling rather than written. And I'm sitting here and thinking, oh my gosh, this is a storytelling. Theater is storytelling, but it's group storytelling. Because I was thinking of myself becoming a storyteller, an oral storyteller. Then I thought, well, how much better to have a group telling a story. You know, there's been an agreement, of course, about the path you're going to take, but it's like even when you're telling your own story, you can go back and refine it. You know, the first shot is not necessarily it, particularly if you're trying to learn how, and you're always trying to learn how, aren't you?
Yes.
And the other thing I wanted to say is I'm an artist, I'm a sculptor, and listening to you, you know, it's the creative process. You got to take that first step, but, you know, like you don't really know what's going to happen, or you don't know what part you're really going to like. So but you have to step out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Stir the pot.
Take risks.
I wouldn't call it potluck.
Sometimes it is.
But anyway, it's an art form, and in view of the umbrella of the storytelling, it's ancient.
Yes.
So you're tuning into this ancient, and we've always needed it, and we've always gone to it. So, like, what's new? But thank you.
Thank you.
So come see the performances December 2nd through the 19th, right here at the New Mexico Actors Lab.
Yes, Jennifer.
I have a question.
Yes.
I know that you collaborate, Just Say It Theater collaborates with other types of theater artists, with sound, with visual, with set. You did wonderful things with all of your performances, and also with, what is the water one? What is your play?
Sworn to Water.
Thank you. I
Yes.
cannot remember right now. Sworn to Water was done by David Olson. Very, very much a scenic set.
Yes.
It was great. It was textured. It
Yes.
was terrific. Avalanche, the last time I saw it, was basically a wonderful reading. And we just totally used our imagination for the set and for the sound.
Good, you'll have to do it again, because there's no set.
That's what I was wondering.
It's just the act.
Are you guys going to be total opposites in use of set and visuals?
One of our goals when we started talking was that even though they're two one-acts that have a similar theme, we want them to feel absolutely different. So the first act is Avalanche, Leslie's play. The second act is One to Water, Dale's play, and this space will transform between those two plays.
We've done again, it was a collaborative process, but Vince Faust designed our set. But throughout the months that we all met and worked on the design, it was very important that they had something in common, yet were very distinct, and they are. And they do. So that's all I'll say. You have to come see it. It's quite something.
Yes.
Hi. I'm a fan of recycling and reuse. And I want to applaud Leslie with your magical drawer of reusable, recyclable plates. I find that fascinating. I'd be interested in seeing any of those cycles, I think. So my question is, do you have more? I hope the more will come out of your drawer, and maybe you could share any ideas.
Yes, the drawer is quite full. So we'll see. I think that, yes, there will be other things coming. It's not over yet.
Yes.
Leslie, in the process of returning to the same play
Yes.
over several years,
Decades, yes.
over several decades, what would you say is your biggest lesson learned? Was there something that you saw in the beginning that you thought, gosh, I shouldn't have added that? Or what advice, if you look back, would you give yourself?
Yes.
Repeat that question. That's good.
Oh, that's such a, would you repeat it? Because I can't remember it. You're younger than me.
What advice would you give yourself?
The question is, having worked on a play for many decades, how has it affected and are there things that you learned from the process that you would add or subtract, basically?
Yes, that's great. And I do have an answer for you, because I was just thinking of this the other day, that it really comes down to having a lot of faith in those early impulses. And I was so nervous, I didn't trust where the play came from in myself necessarily, because I thought, a lot of women playwrights that are getting done, they have big issues. I don't have a big issue at stake. I want to be like this person or that person, and I'm afraid this is a great character flaw, but I think it occurs to a lot of creative people in the early stages. It's like, oh, if I could just be like Sam Shepard, or if I could just be like Wendy Wasserstein, or all these playwrights that were, I loved, and my play wasn't. And so, that's one of the reasons it went in the drawer first, is because this doesn't fit in, and then I lost faith in what were the original impulses. So that I feel finally, after all of these times, and each time I'd revisit, it's like, okay, I'm in a little bit different place in my life, so maybe I'm a little stronger now. Maybe I can have a little more faith. This is really about. And so I was actually kind of learning about myself and what was really at stake, or what I really believed in, honestly. And, that's just part of the life journey. But this play was like revisiting kind of on the path, on the journey that you're making. It's like a touchstone, a kind of lodestar for me. And by revisiting it, it kind of, made me awaken to, oh wait, that's part of who you are. You care about this, and that's okay if you get it out. You get to say that, honey. And then finally, I get so old, I've lived so long, it's like, oh hell, I can just say anything I want. Come on, girl. Because what the heck? That's who I am. And I think that, Yes, thank you for asking that, because that's been a real revelation to me in these last couple of months, is to really embrace, like, yeah, this is what I believe in, this is what I want to say. And so talking to the actors and having to share this personal story of where some of this play came from, it was like, yeah, I can say this now. I can put this out there.
Just say it.
Just say it, which is a theater name. So I'm grateful to Just Say It Theater for allowing me to just say it. But also never give up, never give up. It's not, things that you just don't think are worthwhile can really come around. And I think there have been other writers, Benny's so good about knowing all the theater history and stuff, but people that have had plays that, bang, in the drawer and then they come back. Anyway, never give up.
Larry Lavender, who would like to say a few words?
Just a couple words, sure. More than a couple.
There is going to be some stage readings this Friday, right across at the Improv Theater. It's not improv, believe me. These are written plays, and it's going to be one night only. And I've got a theater company that does it. And the plays are, I think...
What's the night, Jerry?
Friday night.
This coming Friday?
This coming Friday. I hope it doesn't compete with that. Luckily, this is what we did. You can come. If you've seen the play here. Or
so we've got many playwrights that are being encouraged, no matter what the age.
Good.
And Jerry's one of them.
Yeah.
And we would also like to know when your play begins.
Glad you say a couple
more. Sorry.
Sorry, I just got my chance here. I've got some of the flyers out there if you want to take them. The plays are timely. I think they're about what's going on. Although I always like to quote who's a Louis B. Mayer said, "If you want to send a message, use Western Union." I don't want to do it. That's one of his famous lines. And I don't want to do that. I want it to be alive, but they are about what's going on. And they've got a good acting company, and they're alive. They're not just reading, in front of a music stand.
Here in this gracious space that we're so thankful to be in. December 2nd is our opening, and we play through December 19th. So, and
4 performances.
See us and bring friends and
4
have a party.
performances every weekend, yes.
Yes,
Thursday,
just
Friday,
like
Saturday, Sunday. Yep. So come see us. Get tickets at justsayittheater.com.
Yes.
Yes.
A number of people have been asking, commenting how much they like talkbacks after, especially provocative things. So, question, I know it was packed at Desert Cities on the Sunday you were doing a talkback. Are you going to be doing talkbacks after any of your performances? And if so, are you planning ahead for which ones so that we know when to buy tickets?
We talked about that, but I would like to do talkbacks.
We did talk about it.
Sunday matinees?
Yeah, we have in our previous productions done talkbacks, and they are well attended and a lot of fun. And we did talk about it quite a while back. So, but we will talk about it further.
Oh, okay.
I like doing what New Mexico, I just want to copy New Mexico actors.
Second Sunday? That's
Second
nice.
Sunday, and then it's right in the middle,
Great.
so
That
then
would
people
be
are used to that.
Sunday the 14th, something like that? Sunday
I
the
don't know,
14th?
I can't do the numbers.
So we'll put it all on our website.
All right. Terrific.
Thank you.